Hello, my name is Elizabeth Marks, and I am a senior philanthropic advisor based in southern Vermont. When the pandemic emerged, an anonymous donor asked us if there was a way to support small businesses in the Manchester, Arlington, and Dorset region that were facing financial hardship. We worked with the donor and partnered with the Bank of Bennington to create a small business relief fund. The donor's $500,000 challenge grant was matched by other local donors to create a $1 million program. Vermonters know that the natural beauty, outdoor recreation, restaurant, shops, and other amenities in these Northshire towns attract visitors from throughout the Northeast and the world. What people may not know is that the region is a major employment hub, supporting more than 4,500 jobs. In August, we awarded grants of $5,000 to $30,000 to 55 mom-and-pop businesses that collectively employed 121 full-time and 191 part-time jobs. The grant recipients were inns, restaurants, hair salons, artists, retail shops, and many others that are the heart and the soul of the community's character and its vitality. The goal of these grants is to help them endure through this economic downturn. This is just one example of the power of donors coming together with the Vermont Community Foundation to build a stronger Vermont.
Good afternoon. My name is Stacy Fagan. I'm the Vice President for Philanthropy at the Vermont Community Foundation. Delighted to be with all of you, and thanks for gathering, even if it's just virtually for now. We appreciate you taking the time to join us for our annual meeting today. There are so many inspirational elements in the story my colleague Elizabeth just shared, but one of them is that it so poignantly represents how the foundation leverages its knowledge, insight, and experience to support philanthropists and generating deeply meaningful impact in place. We'll talk more about how we work with fund holders to amplify the impact of their philanthropy. First, though, I'd like for you to join me in thinking broadly about the foundation. What I mean is, who are we? What do we do? And why does it matter? When I first began working at the foundation, someone said to me, you know, everyone knows a little something about the Vermont Community Foundation, but it always seems like there's something more to learn about what you do. I think it's that word, foundation. It's easy to think of us as a singular entity. But when we have an opportunity to look a little closer, we can appreciate the breadth and depth that is the reality of who we are. Family of funds and funders and friends, a wonderfully broad set of philanthropic partners comprised of donor-advised funds, legacy funds, discretionary funds, nonprofits and their funds. Donors are supporting organizations, mission investments, our professional advisors, tax advisors, attorneys, financial planners. I think you get my drift. But without this family of partners and friends, the foundation would simply not exist. So it is with this in mind that we extend our sincere appreciation to each one of you. We thank you for turning to the Community Foundation as a trusted source for advice and support, for tools and resources, knowledge and insight, so that together we can expand effective philanthropy in Vermont. Now, I'd like to share a few reflections on our work in 2019, highlighting the activity from the year that speaks to the partnership between the foundation and our fund holders and donors, both individual and organizational. We kicked off 2019 with an inspiring $5 million grant from a donor-advised fund to support the conservation of almost 800 acres of wild forest in Lamoille County. This grant, the largest from a donor-advised fund in the foundation's 34-year history. As a result of the grant, the land will be forever conserved for outdoor recreation and serves as a key piece of the wildlife corridor in the region of Vermont. Working with the foundation, the fund holder was able to make a transformative investment with the support and knowledge of foundation staff to assist at each step of a very complex process, one that involved several nonprofits, state agencies, and local leaders. We ended the year with another inspiring gift, that of an $8 million trust conversion, which will result in more than $400,000 in annual grants to nonprofits in and around Woodstock year over year in perpetuity. The foundation worked closely with the trust attorneys to design the conversion in such a way as to maximize the impact the gift could have on the community, with strong investment management, fund stewardship, and knowledge of Vermont being elemental inputs into the design. While these two incredible gifts were the bookends for the year, fund holders of the foundation were generous at every level and for purposes ranging from general operating support, capacity building, and urgent needs to pilot programs and transformational investments. Gifts range from $250 to $5 million. But it's also important that we highlight a few other grants made by fund holders and donors. Though not of the same scale as the previous examples, they remind us that impact and inspiration are defined in many different ways. Each of the gifts I'm about to describe, I assure you, made an impact and a difference in Vermont in 2019. A six-figure grant to Rural Edge, an organization in the Northeast Kingdom, providing transitional housing and addiction treatment for pregnant and mothering women. A grant to help launch a new Head Start program in an area of the north end of Burlington where no preschool existed previously. A multi-donor, multi-year grant to Root Social Justice in Brattleboro, funding that will help them expand staff capacity and grow programs for the BIPOC community. And a multi-community grant designed to expand mental and behavioral health services in 3 mountain communities. In the end, fund holders granted more than $14.5 million from their donor advised funds at the Community Foundation in 2019. The other piece of the foundation's work that I'd like to highlight is its role as a steward of nonprofit funds. That is, designated endowment and reserve funds, which in 2019 dispersed more than $5.6 million. These funds provide nonprofits with ongoing stable support and allow organizations to invest in such things as capacity building, leadership development, strategic planning. Investments we know from experience contribute to their efficacy, stability, and long-term viability. At the foundation, we speak a lot about trust. Whether our partner is an individual, a family, an advisor, or a nonprofit, we have a tremendous responsibility to understand their goals and to use our knowledge and resources to help them make a difference in their communities. This is, after all, about neighbors helping neighbors, which is why in March of this year, when we pivoted our work in response to the pandemic, we were humbled and inspired by the robust response from fund holders, donors, and friends. We wouldn't see this response or have the opportunity to support Vermont in this way without having first built trust as a partner, an advisor, a collaborator, as a problem solver. What we do every day, year over year, with donors, fund holders, and our partners across the state provided the foundation from which we could act thoughtfully and quickly on March 13th, 2020. In a few minutes, my colleague Sarah Waring will walk you through the strategy behind the COVID-19 Response Fund and detail on the grant making from the fund over the last several months. Before she does, I want to share just a glimpse of the work that staff have been doing with many philanthropic partners to activate resources utilizing various charitable tools and resources of the foundation. In late March, donor advised fund holders immediately began making grants, pivoting their giving plans, adapting to new best practices for grant making amid COVID, and turning to us to consider how to maximize their charitable resources, both in the moment and for the duration of the crisis. Since then, more than $2.4 million in responsive grant making has been deployed from donor advised funds specifically for COVID-related needs to help nonprofits weather the storm. Of course, there has been robust philanthropy beyond COVID. That includes grant making to priorities such as racial equity and justice, arts recovery, and much more. But now let's go back to my colleague Elizabeth, who shared the story of small business relief in the small business relief effort in Arlington, Manchester, and Dorset. In addition to this fund, we supported a similar effort in the Killington region, working closely with the ski resort and the Cumming family. Together, these efforts resulted in $1.3 million in grants to small businesses in these 4 communities over the last several months. I won't bore you with the details, but suffice it to say that because of the Opportunity Gap Initiative and the strong network of partners, we were able to execute an incredibly complex grant-making effort that will have a tremendous impact on the region in the months and year to come. And then there's the COVID-19 Response Fund. We saw incredible generosity from fund holders and friends of the foundation and the general public in their contributions to that fund. 450 gifts and 256 donors later, the fund stands at $7.4 million raised and committed to date. Approximately 22% of the foundation's fund holders contributed to this fund, and more than half of the total amount raised was contributed by donors and friends outside of the foundation. Gifts to the fund range from $5 to $1 million. A recent gift to the fund came from a donor who worked with the foundation to deploy a similar high six-figure gift in the wake of Tropical Storm Irene to, quote, help her neighbors. The donor shared that this gift comes from her inheritance, something she feels that does not belong to her, but rather it is something she feels she owes to her fellow Vermonters, that she could think of no better partner than the foundation or time in which to put these resources to use than right now. We have seen gifts from every corner of the state, from local and national businesses, from family foundations, and nonprofits. Before I turn the virtual podium over to my colleagues on the grants and community investments team, I want to leave you with this final sentiment. It's been nothing short of extraordinary, to see the generosity, trust, and collaboration among funders over the last 6 months. We are deeply grateful and humbled to be in a position to help during this particularly challenging time. And yet this is what we do. Whether it's day-to-day or in moments of crisis, the Vermont Community Foundation is on a mission to strengthen Vermont, one gift at a time. Thank you for being among our family of funders and friends of the Vermont Community Foundation. Thank you.